The movie begins with a scene of off-road sand bikers who are having fun. Then it focuses on a man who suddenly falls and has a motor breakdown. He tries to start his motorbike that died, but suddenly a predator emerges from the sand and devours him. Soon after, his friend arrives and is confused when he sees the motorbike lying there. And once again, the creepy predator shows its fin and chases the biker until he is caught and then taken for a ride before being eaten. Meanwhile, Jimmy, the son of the mayor of the small island town of White Sands, meets his father to discuss that he will throw a party to increase the income of the town. His target is the outsiders who will come to the town and spend their money. At the same time, the local sheriff John and his sister Brenda investigate the deaths of the people who were biking earlier. They have a little argument because Brenda thinks it is a shark, while John, who has a rational mind, does not believe her. How can a shark get there? John thinks. The scene switches to Sandy, a shark expert who receives a phone call from Brenda to come to White Sands. Brenda is still convinced that the murders are the work of a shark. Meanwhile, a couple who are sunbathing on the beach are suddenly attacked by the cursed sand shark. On the other side of the beach, Jimmy and his colleagues are preparing the layout of the party with Willie, Aaron, and a lawyer named Amanda. When John and Brenda are watching the beach, they meet Jimmy and his 3 co-workers who are walking around. Then the atmosphere becomes tense when a woman screams for help because her boyfriend was eaten by a big shark. John does not believe it and thinks it is just a joke. But when he saw a shark suddenly appear and devour the woman, John finally believed that they were dealing with sand sharks. A few hours later, the town hall was filled with residents who demanded clarification about the sand sharks. John did not completely deny the fact, but he argued that the shark was just a coincidence that was swimming in shallow waters. He still could not accept that there was a shark that could swim in the sand, but John decided to close the beach temporarily for safety, because if the shark was not caught, it would be dangerous to be around the beach. This caused anxiety among the residents, especially for those who had businesses on the beach. They were all worried that their businesses would suffer an economic downturn if the beach was closed. In the meeting, a man named Angus told them that they were dealing with real sand sharks that could swim through the sand and prey on humans. He offered to hunt the shark as long as he got a big payment, but the response he got was very unpleasant. He was considered crazy. After the meeting was over, Sandy, who had watched the meeting, went straight to the laboratory to examine the remains of the victims of the vicious shark. John also came to visit Sandy. They had a light chat. Sandy found a shark tooth in the remains of the shark victim, and after she examined it, she found out that the tooth was like a baby shark tooth, so that the shark that terrorized the people on the beach was a baby shark. At dawn, 2 men were using a rubber boat. They were immediately targeted by the sand shark in the water. They tried to escape and made it to the shore, but they did not know that the shark could swim in the sand, and they became the breakfast for the sand shark. Even though the bodies of the 2 men were found the next morning by Brenda, they were not really bodies, just their hands. Meanwhile, Jimmy was worried that his party would not go on because of the naughty shark. He called someone to bring a dead shark and told the residents that the man had caught the shark that terrorized them. But luckily, Sandy came there and examined the shark. She said that the shark was not the one that terrorized them. In fact, the shark had been dead for more than a week. John still closed the beach, and that made Jimmy disappointed. A moment later, Jimmy secretly removed the sign that the beach was closed, and together with his friends, he still planned to prepare a party on the beach, ignoring the threat from the sand shark. At night, the sand shark caused trouble by biting the electric cable that Jimmy installed on the beach, resulting in a blackout in the city. After the blackout, Brenda arrested Jimmy and brought him to John, who was on the beach with 3 men at gunpoint. The 3 men were Jimmy's henchmen. John caught them because they were caught installing electric cables on the beach. The electricity had to be turned off because of their actions, and of course because of the shark. Soon after, they saw with their own eyes the shark's fin moving among the sands of the beach, so they finally believed what Angus said. But how foolish the mayor was, who gave a speech near the sand, so he became the prey of the sand shark. Then Jimmy's henchmen did not hear the people's call to stay away from the sand. He insisted on fixing the electric cable that was bitten by the sand shark. As a result, he was devoured by the shark. But because he was holding the cable, It caused an explosion, so the body of the sand shark was shattered. The threat was gone, they thought, so the beach was reopened and the party was soon to be held by Jimmy. But once again, Sandy warned that the shark's tooth looked like a baby's, and she was sure the mother shark would look for her lost child. Finally, Jimmy held a very lively party on the beach. The party participants came from out of town. All the party participants looked happy. Many women danced sexily in bikinis, making the guys' eyes wide and excited. At the same time, Amanda and Jimmy were kissing until they were caught by Brenda, who turned out to be Jimmy's ex. Brenda looked very annoyed and left. Then suddenly, unexpectedly, a sand shark appeared and bit Amanda's neck until her head was cut off and rolled, making Jimmy shocked. It turned out that the man-eating sand shark was still there, not just one. The incident was known by Willie and Aaron, who had just arrived. Willie immediately said they had to report the incident and disperse the party, but Jimmy cared more about keeping the party going and wanted them to keep the presence of the sand shark a secret. But because Willie was going to report the incident, Aaron had to hit Willie's head with a glass bottle, so the man passed out. Jimmy and Aaron were the same as the business-minded people who justified all means. When Aaron was about to move the body, Willie was suddenly devoured by the sand shark. Even though she realized there was a sand shark, she and Jimmy still kept quiet because they didn't want to lose money. When the partygoers were having fun, a woman who was opening her bikini, suddenly she was devoured by a sand shark and her blood splattered. The people ran away in panic, and the situation became uncontrollable. Then the truth was revealed that there were many other sand sharks in the area. More sand sharks appeared and started killing the guests one by one. Even Brenda was killed when she tried to get people off the beach, while John and Sandy were trapped on the rocks where the sharks could not reach them. But they also could not get out because the rocks were surrounded by sand. John was also very devastated to hear that Brenda had died because she was eaten by a sand shark. Previously, John's parents and Brenda had the same fate as Brenda. They were eaten by sharks. To wallow in grief at a time like this was not the right choice. John chose to be tough and professional, being a policeman who could protect his citizens. He asked Jimmy for help to evacuate the beach visitors who were on the pier to get away from there. Although Jimmy could not save all the visitors, luckily when the shark attacked, not many people fell victim on the pier, especially when Angus appeared to get people out of there. Somehow John and Sandy had managed to escape from the rocks on the beach. Now they were four: John, Sandy, Angus, and Jimmy. They would make a plan to destroy the cursed sharks using Jimmy's party speakers and Angus's sand field and homemade flamethrower. After making a plan carefully, they began to work together to realize their plan. By using the speaker sound as a lure, they tried their best to make the sound attract the sand sharks to Angus's sand field. Their efforts almost succeeded, but unfortunately the speaker stopped making sound, and eventually Jimmy decided to fix it. But it turned out that the cable was torn because it was bitten by the sand shark. Jimmy, who was determined to redeem his mistakes, finally gave up his life and chose to sacrifice himself as bait so that the sand sharks would enter Angus's sand field again and stay there. Then Angus could burn them with his flamethrower, making the sharks burn and get stuck in the melted sand. With the sand sharks now turned into grilled fish, the threat seemed to have disappeared, making the three of them breathe a sigh of relief. But it turns out that there is another fin that is much bigger moving on the cliff. It is the mother of the sand sharks that breaks through and attacks ferociously, eating Angus. Trapped in the shack, John and Sandy make a last effort to kill the big shark by throwing a flamethrower tank into the mouth of the mother shark as they escape from the shack. The sand shark bites the tank, and the bomb explodes, destroying the mother shark and the shack at the same time. Its flesh, guts, and blood splatter everywhere. Finally, John and Sandy can breathe a sigh of relief. Returns to the trailer where Aaron is hiding after the shark killed Willie. He is talking to someone who wants to have a beach party, but suddenly a shark appears and she is devoured by another sand shark. That tells that the threat of the sand sharks is not over yet, and the movie ends. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.